the Southern California Desert Ramble, the SoCal Desert Ramble. So this was a bikepacking adventure that I went on from Los Angeles down to San Diego, and it was over about 2 weeks. First ever big bikepacking trip, and yeah, it was pretty exciting stuff. Those first few days climbing out from LA, my legs were getting so tired, so used to all the bikepacking. We had some crazy thunderstorm out of nowhere on the way up the hill. Stayed in this campsite that was super dodgy, just on the side of the trail. Just loads of bullets that totally I was not used to coming from New Zealand. We have very different gun laws to America. And we continued on this trek up this big hill climbing into Big Bear. It was pretty cool actually, a little 4-wheel drive track. And we had stocked up at the supermarkets in LA before we went. Got tofu. That was like honestly the main protein that we ate. And then we got loads of sugary snacks because everything in America just has so much sugar. Which is great when you're bikepacking and you want to fuel yourself. We camped, this was our second night, found a beautiful campsite, really nice sunrise and sunset at that spot. And it felt a bit more off the beaten trail, which was quite cool. And we just set up camp, and I definitely remember feeling so tired that morning. And then this day we had a pretty massive incline actually. I think like 1,500 meters or something. But I can put the statistics of that at the end. And going down this hill, we saw this little like bear footprint. It might have been a big dog footprint, but I swear it looked like a bear footprint. And then we were kind of thinking, I wonder if there's actually bears here, or there could be. And I think it's unlikely, it probably was a dog, but there are bears in that area, which is wild. We saw some really cool people living off in the desert areas as well during this little trip in their 4-wheel drive vans and utes and things. And climbed up the hill, had lots of rest breaks, ate lots of food. Towards the top of the hill here, it was getting like super snowy and icy and really exciting because the climate is pretty different to New Zealand. Like it's just very dry, maybe more similar to our central Otago regions. And then this evening, it was so freezing that I got out my emergency blanket and put it over my sleeping bag. So this day was so exciting because we had booked in this host down in Big Bear, who we found through Warm Showers, which is a bikepacking website that loads of people use to host people and also to stay with people, kind of like couch surfing. And just they welcomed us in. They gave us like dinner. They went out and bought some dairy-free ice cream for me, which was the sweetest thing ever. And it just felt like a little home away from home. And they felt like family. They were the coolest couple. They said they went skiing from their front yard in the winter, and they just look super adventurous and really fit. And yeah, then we got a little tour the next day around like where the gravel roads were starting to get more like clay and ready, and it's beautiful. And it's so nice on the road when you meet people that genuinely care about your journey and what you're doing and how you're exploring. They want to show you everything, just so much kindness. So I loved that day. And we also just felt so rejuvenated being able to stay in a bed, have a shower, and we stayed with another Warm Showers host, who he actually has multiple people throughout the entire year, and he bike tours with his dog. So when we got to his place, we met another guy that we then travelled the next day with, who was on his bike, which was really cool. And we were starting to get a lot more into the desert territory. So it looked almost like old movie scenes, like these crazy like towns just with one pub and then these big four-wheel drive utes, almost like this person with a cowboy hat's going to come out with guns and be like, hey, what are you up to? That was my feeling anyway. It felt a bit foreign, to be honest, being in that sort of environment, just like such a desert. Maybe it comes from also like New Zealand has so much lush greenery. But biking into Joshua Tree National Park, which is a rock climbing mecca, was really beautiful, and we could like run around on the rocks, do a little bit of rock climbing, like just bouldering, which was super fun. And the next day we ditched our friend that we had made because he was going a different way and we wanted to go more off trail with our lovely suspension that we had on our bikes, make the most of it. So we went down more into the sandy terrain, and it was quite fun actually, quite flat I think for the most part of that day, and then we went through a few different valleys, and we went through a gun range at one point actually, and then arrived into this lemon orchard for the evening where Yaz's mat accidentally was deflated from the lemon prickles. It was quite unfortunate, but it's okay because we had a lovely night's sleep. Then we woke up, we followed a canal down into what we were going towards Slab City, but we stayed just before Slab City that evening, where there was another like army station or something, and they were shooting guns the whole night, which was really wild. And we also went for a swim in the swimming pool that we found along the way, and that was the most refreshing thing ever after biking for I think it had been a week at that point, and starting to get really heat exhausted with no shade. And then there was just this beautiful swimming pool that we could swim in, which was so cool. That felt magic actually. So here we are biking into Slab City, a lawless town. It's bizarre. It had a kind of an eerie feel, but then there's so many creative sorts, people that come from all over the country to live out their dreams in this place with it was very interesting being there actually. Didn't know if it was going to be dangerous or not, but we decided to not stay there the night. And we stayed in this campsite by these salt flats, which was very cool. There were a couple bugs, but it wasn't that bad. And it's pretty cool that we could just find campsites along the way and stay wherever we wanted to stay. So that worked out really well for us in the end with camping. And along the way, I guess we would try to stop as much as we can to get water and food at the supermarkets. We would often stop at the supermarkets whenever there was a supermarket and get extra snacks, because when you bike every day, your body is so hungry and you need to fuel it all the time. We made our route. This was a date shake place. So date shakes was a thing because there's so many date palms everywhere, because it's so dry, they grow so well, but they also use a lot of water. And so that was super enjoyable, being able to just stop by a date shake, which is literally these fresh dates mixed with water. It was so sweet. And then because we had so much energy, we biked into the night, and then we stopped at this canyon type sand area, set up our tents. Turns out there was some rally drive racing during the night that was pretty close to us, but it was alright. We had a nice flat campground anyway. And then we ended up biking through some pretty hefty sandy spots. And because this was like our shakedown ride for Baja, it was quite good really to have that experience. Get really frustrated with biking on sand, but also like deflating the tires, realizing like it's fine to just go slow, just accepting you can't really bike that fast through sand. And then we poured water in ourselves because it was so warm in the desert. But we also arrived at Borrego Springs, where we decided to have a rest day. Borrego Springs was probably one of my favourite rest day spots, and places in general. It just had like this really good feel. Maybe also because there was like a spring there, so it was water, which was not desert, which was so nice. And like the mountains surrounding Borrego Springs and the campground was so lovely, and very bike oriented. Like they had these little shelters and then free water everywhere that you could just fill up your drink bottles. It honestly felt like paradise. And you can see a little hummingbird that was up at the springs, which we had a really fun day. And that was the campground right there with the beautiful majestic mountains glowing in the morning. After our break day, we headed off through the wondrous sculptures in the park, just massive sculptures. And then we decided to bike along the road for a little bit because we were really over the sandy desert biking. Found some grapes. We went to some early Christmas markets. I think it was early December. And there were some really cool shops, like little small entries into a shop, and then you go out the back door and there's this massive area with Christmassy things. So that was fun. And then this campsite was also very biker friendly, very easy, very cheap and everything. Didn't go for a swim because I was frozen, and that night was very, very cold as well. And I think when you're out for such a long time biking, you kind of have to manage your temperature and your fatigue a little bit more than you would normally. So being cautious of like not getting too cold and having good night's sleep, all those little things that sometimes you disregard a little bit. And then we were getting closer and closer to San Diego, and before you saw us like going up into this cafe area, so quite often we would stop every maybe like 4 days, or I guess whenever we'd go through a city, we'd charge all of our electronics, which was also a massive bonus of staying with warm showers house because you could charge everything. So that was pretty cool to utilize cafe spaces and also just feel human again, like you're having a nice cup of coffee and you're not just this homeless bikepacking legend. And then here we were coming into San Diego, where we stayed with another Warm Showers host near Sunset Boulevard, which was super fancy. So that was the SoCal Desert Ramble. What a fun trip. I really enjoyed it. I would highly, highly recommend to anybody. The end.